far as council, Keith Rhodes, Mayor Wendell Staley, John McCoy, Clay Cole, Mr. David Munt, who is with Safe Built, and Mr. Joe Bridges. And at this time, I would like to introduce Joe and ask if you have any opening comments, and then the same thing for Mr. Munt. Or we can start in the other direction if you'd like.
I thank y'all for, doing this. I didn't know this was an option or know anything about a work day, it's possible, so I appreciate Clay offering that up, and it gives us a good opportunity to discuss things and kind of look at different angles and views and whatnot, and appreciate, people of Sharpsburg coming out as well, so I look forward to a good meeting, good discussion.
Great, thanks, Joe. Mr. Munt, please, if you would, a little bit of your background and qualifications, if you don't mind, please.
I'm David Munt. I'm a building official. I work for Safe Built. They're a company their corporate offices are in Colorado. We serve right at 27 municipalities and counties in the state of Georgia. We serve in 6 other states as well. We have probably no less than 160 employees working for us at very different stages in their career. We are a private-owned company. We're not public. I've been in this business right at 32 years. Prior to that, I grew up in construction with my family, and we built several things. You may have been around when Hartsfield Airport was Hartsfield Airport, and it had the clamshell type roof. Well, my father built that. My father also built the CNS Bank there in Hapeville, right where it's not there anymore. The highway took it out. It was right there at Central Avenue and I-75. He also built, which is no longer in service anymore, the reactor at Georgia Tech. Those are some of the few things that, as growing up, I was involved with as well as he was. My experience is at various levels, residential, commercial, industrial. When I came on with Safe Built, we acquired the contract down at the Kia plant, and I did all the inspections at the Kia plant. What my experience is I'm considered what they call a master code professional. I have all the certifications that require what that takes. That's about 22 or 23 certifications. Other than that, I'm just a regular old country.
Good job.
Trying to make a living.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Now, if we could, Joe, we'll come back to you and state your position, your needs, your wants. Just, floor is yours, sir.
Sure. I think, last meeting when we were discussing in the public comments, you guys said, hey, this is really not the forum, this is not the place for that. And that's when Clay said, let's do a work session. And that was based on me asking the city to allow, this building and the library to be utilized, the bathrooms to be utilized to solve the issues that are at hand. With no bathrooms in those buildings, that would serve the purpose of bathrooms to employees and patrons of the store.
Okay. And at this time, then, we'll go back to, yes.
Well, let's just cut the chase and let me pose a direct question to David.
Okay.
In order to stay in compliance with all current state or whatever rules that we're under, with the existing facilities that we have, which is There's a single bathroom, I think, in that right, Joe, in both the buildings that he owns, the historical and the thing, and the old post office.
Mhm.
And we have this facility here, and we have the library that has the bathroom. With those 4 existing facilities, is there any way to utilize those in any kind of way that would meet the business requirement for his businesses if they were able to utilize any of those?
It was stated in a memo to y'all that each business is required to have a facility. They are not required to have separate facilities because they don't meet the occupant loads. Okay? What I also stated is that in lieu of putting in separate facilities in each one of the buildings, they could have a central facility which could be located in the old post office building and make it handicap accessible.
But I'm saying, with what we have right now, without any kind of modification, would it be possible?
No.
No. So something's got to be done. What we have now is not usable to meet this criteria.
Right.
So no matter what we do, something's got to be modified to
Yeah.
be in compliance with it. So I think the next thing is, what of the options that would be available in order to allow the businesses to be in compliance, what can you see would be the minimum modifications and where would be necessary?
Well, the minimum would be, you put in, like I said, a centralized toilet facility, men's and women's, because of the mix of all of the occupancies all together, and both can be handicap accessible. You could probably get away with 1 toilet in each, 1 vanity in each. With the men's, you'd probably have to add a urinal. The other part of that would be that each one of the facilities would need to put either in well, they don't have any plumbing, so they would have to put in bottled water, or you would have to have a facility at the restroom to be able for them to have a drink of water.
And hot water facility.
Yeah.
And that's in one location?
One location.
Wherever we
One
chose,
location.
whatever works the best, but
One
in one
location.
location, we'd have to have all this.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Please,
And I'm-
it's open for.
Yeah, okay, I'm not trying to be confrontational, but I do have questions, and I've read a lot of the codes, and I've been studying up on this, and I haven't, that's why I was telling Donna, I said, I'd love for the attorney to be here, so he could take those to a legal standpoint and say, okay, this, maybe there's a point here, maybe there's not, or whatever, but anyway, David, all right, so utilizing these buildings and bathrooms to satisfy the need of the ordinance of having a bathroom to those employees and patrons of the store. These bathrooms here are not up to code?
No, they are up to code, but I guess what I'm trying to say is these are not accessible
Why are they not?
24/7. They're not accessible 24/7.
How do you know that?
Well, what time do you open?
I'm here at 9, but there's also renters here pretty much every day. There's classes here, and you can't just walk in on somebody's paying for a class.
Right, but it is possible that it is, my point.
That's up to them,
Yeah,
not up to
exactly,
me to say. It's
exactly.
up to them.
Exactly, so that's my point. You guys have that authority to make this available and accessible.
Not
And
when
with
we
it-
already have classes here every day, that those stores would be open.
It is possible, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying, you have to make choices. You want to rent it, or do you want to provide it for services of the town? In fashion of after. That's all. I'm just, when we say things, and we say things as a matter of fact, and then we refer to an official, I just want to make sure we all are on the same page here, that, there's certain things that you guys, as the government, choose to do, and it is within your power to do certain things according to, the state of Georgia and the Constitution, being a home rule state. There are many things that we can do, and it's, you're not choosing to do them, it's kind of the point I'm trying to make.
Right, but what it says is, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, it says that all hours that those businesses are open, a bathroom has to be available.
Where does it say that?
I don't know if it says it to that effect, it just says that they're required.
Or required.
They're just required
Okay.
for each one of the facilities.
Okay. So we need an attorney here to make a decision on it, because nobody in this room knows the answer to that exact question. Am I correct? I certainly don't know it.
I just told you they were required for each one of the facilities.
So we have them here?
No,
We satisfy that
not
requirement?
all the hours that the stores are open. Let's take the fact that the stores are open primarily on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, sir.
All right, this building is not available for them at that time, nor is the library.
Why
Because we
couldn't
have
it
the
be?
lineage of other people, and we're not going to allow, we are not going to allow the public to trump
I don't
through.
think that's the issue. We just want to know, is this a viable solution? If these were open 24 hours a day, would this facility meet the requirement
That's
of the
something
business?
else.
I understand that. I'm asking, would these existing facilities meet the requirement for the businesses to be open? If they were free to come and go as they.
Probably not, but because it's a separate facility.
Now, where there's a viable solution, that's totally different than whether we would agree to do it. That's totally different. I just want to establish whether they would meet the criteria.
It's a separate facility and its size according to this facility.
What I'm looking at right here, it says plumbing, and this is a Georgia code. And under code 503.3, it says, location of employees' toilet facilities. Toilet facilities shall have access from within the employee's working area. The
Right.
required toilet facilities shall be located no more than 1 story above, 1 story after. Now, it goes on with an exception, which I think you quoted at one point, Joe. Facilities that are required for employees in storage structures or kiosks, which are located in adjacent structures under the same ownership, not the ownership of the city, on same ownership, lease or control shall not exceed 500 feet. So it says that it shall be.
Tell me, just so I can make sure I can reference it, what's the section?
Chapter 5, plumbing facilities and fixture requirements,
Of which,
International Property Maintenance Code. And it's section, paragraph 503-3, location of employees' toilets.
yes, sir.
David, am I quoting something that, I'm reading right from the book here.
Employees' facilities, a minimum of 1 water closet for 1 lavatory, 1 drinking facility shall be available. Drinking facilities can be bottled water or whatever. Public facilities, public toilet facilities shall be maintained in a safe, sanitary, and working condition in accordance with the International Plumbing Code, except for periodic maintenance or cleaning. Public access and use shall be provided to the facilities at all times during occupancy of the premises.
That's stating from 502.5, you
Yeah.
would reference that.
Right, I see that. We can stay here as long as we want, going hashing back over, the laws or the codes and stuff. Though I want some clarification if we can on, when you say building codes, there's 2 ways to interpret this: building a noun or a verb. And in most codes, are they not for construction, alteration, remodeling? Are they not from that standpoint?
All codes are for the health, safety, and welfare of everyone. Okay? Does that cover it?
No, my question is.
It does have something to do with construction, existing buildings, as well as safe occupancy, okay? It all goes down through the process. So health, safety, and welfare is everybody's concern here.
And in your opinion, my buildings are not safe?
As they are right now, they're not up to code or not.
I didn't ask you, you know, are they
I
not safe?
can't determine whether they're safe or not because I haven't been in them.
Well, that's what you were kind of saying is, you know, you're,
Health, safety, and welfare.
all right. So when you're, you know, they're within the codes, there's a hierarchy of how international property maintenance code comes down. You can't have a plumbing code if you don't have a building, correct? So there's a hierarchy there. Am I correct? Starts with a building code, and you got electrical code, plumbing code, and so it guides you as to how to inspect and interpret certain things, okay? If, the way I understand it is, there are specific codes and specific protocols to address situations such as existing buildings, such as historic buildings.
That's why we have a property maintenance code.
Okay, so, under the property maintenance code, with an existing building, do you not, is there nothing to address, in your opinion, nothing to address historic buildings?
To my knowledge that they're not historic.
Okay? To your knowledge. Now, to the town of Sharpsburg and the council and the mayor, are those buildings historic, in your opinion?
They are in the historic overlay district, but they have not been put on the National Register as a historic building.
I
But,
won't allow that.
right, now, if you get back to, go a little bit further.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Are they or are they not, in your opinion, historic or not?
If they're in the.
I'm asking the mayor if they're historic or not.
You have to address it to the mayor and council.
Oh, I'm sorry, council,
Right.
Keith, Celine, Clay? I mean, anybody could,
Are they old buildings? Yes.
They appear to be old.
and that's kind of where I would love to have your attorney to say, you know, hey, you guys in the comprehensive plan of 2006 have gone at length to describe historic building, historic structures, the historic architectural vernacular, over and over and over, okay? And you're not willing to say to me, to my face, that these are historic buildings in your
I will
opinion.
tell you to your face, whether they are or they are not, they still have to come up to these regulations as far as safety is concerned. And I have that here when you get through what you're saying.
Oh, no,
Can I
go
ask
ahead.
a question? What is the definition of historic? Does it have to be a building, does it have to be on a register with the National Historic Society to be considered a historic building, or is there any other
Yeah.
definition?
Yes and no. If you consider that district over there a historic district, and you have criteria for it to be maintained and developed or whatever, yes, that can be considered historic. On the other hand, it doesn't matter its age, it doesn't matter condition or anything else. If you want to preserve that piece of property in your historic area, you have to do it to the minimum standards of these codes, which are the minimum that's written.
So no matter whether it was considered historic or not, it still would have to be covered.
Yeah.
Didn't we try to get all that on the historic register at one time?
Mr. Bridges wouldn't have that.
Because I thought we had like that lady coming from the tribe,
Yep.
and she was going over all the different things about getting us declared
Grants and
historical
everything.
area.
Yes,
We
We stopped it because the owners didn't want it. Didn't want to be on the historic
What was
registry.
the reasons why they didn't want it done, do you know?
They didn't want to adhere to the building codes. They, when they redid the buildings or such, they didn't want to have to meet those higher standards of their historic preservation.
And there again, correct me when I'm wrong, but if you go under the historic register, anything you do to that building has to be under the approval and guidance and inspection of the historic society.
Right, which would make sense, I mean, if it is gonna be, seems like it would add value to the property if it was a
Sit down on the floor then. Sit on the floor
There's
with
a lot of strain on the owner. I mean, it's a lot of big expense to adhere to those rules versus not having. If you want to go and put a light bulb in an area that's not lighted, you couldn't do that without going to them and getting approval. So there's a lot of regulations that people don't want to deal with. And that's why they don't want to be, in some cases, under the historic thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've researched this, and I would like for Mr. Monk to look through his books over there and see that the building codes, international building codes, top rung, okay? All right, you go down, you quoted the International Property Maintenance Codes, all right? Within those codes, within that, they have actually stated in Chapter 1, Scope and Administration, just number 102-6, historic buildings. The provisions of this code shall not be mandatory for existing buildings or structures designated as historic buildings when such buildings or structures are judged by the code official to be safe in the public interest of health, safety, and welfare. Okay, that's your public official. Okay, I see you smiling. So he's got total authority. Okay, is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, all right. Now, this same fellow over here, okay? International Property Maintenance Code, Scope and Administration. Chapter 1 is largely concerned with maintaining due process of law in enforcing the property maintenance criteria contained in the body of the code. Only through careful observation of administrative provisions can the building official reasonably expect to demonstrate that equal protection under the law has been provided. Okay? So that's International Property Maintenance Code. Okay? You also reference, all right, back up. When I asked you and asked Donna, I got to explain to my siblings, I got to explain to my mom why, show me, tell me, lay it out, why I can't rent these buildings because of bathrooms. Show me specifically. You gave me occupational tax code, you gave me a building and construction code, you gave me property maintenance, international property maintenance code, and a plumbing code, okay? So the international property maintenance code already acknowledges historic buildings, okay? Let's see. International plumbing code, 102.6 historic buildings. Same thing is stated. Provisions of this code relating to construction, alteration, repair, enlargement, restoration, relocation, or moving of buildings or structures shall not be mandatory for existing buildings or structures identified and classified by the state or local jurisdiction as historic. Or y'all would be considered a local jurisdiction, correct? Okay. When such buildings or structures are judged by the code official to be safe in the public interest of health, safety, welfare, regarding any proposed construction, alteration, repair, enlargement, restoration, relocation, or moving of buildings. So those two codes acknowledge historic buildings.
Sum up, if you would, in your own words, what you just said, please.
They're historic, and you have the authority not to have to you don't have to, the code's not mandatory. That's the way I read it. I mean, I can read it to you again.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, state law,
Okay.
these are all adopted by state law.
Okay. Georgia Code, Title 8, Buildings and Housing, Chapter 2, Standards and Requirements for Construction, Alteration, etc. of Buildings and Other Structures, Article 3, Application of Building and Fire-related Codes to Existing Buildings. 8-2-201, purpose and applicability, of article. It is the purpose of this article to encourage the sensitive rehabilitation, restoration, stabilization, preservation of existing buildings throughout the state, and to encourage the preservation of buildings and structures deemed to be historic in total or in part, provided however such rehabilitation and preservation efforts should provide for the upgrading of safety features of the building structure, provide a practical level of safety to the public surrounding the property. It is further purpose of this article to provide guidance regarding acceptable alternate solutions and to stimulate enforcement authorities to utilize alternative compliance concepts wherever practical to permit the continued use of existing buildings and structures without overly restrictive financial burdens on owners or occupants.
And it said there, back up just a sentence or two and tell you exactly what it said.
Right. What he,
It says providing guidance regarding acceptable alternative solutions. I think we've done that. I don't know of anything else I haven't done.
Well,
Now, it may not be acceptable to you, Mr. Bridges, but it's acceptable to me and the council. And that's where I get my guidance is from this code and my experience. Now, it also goes back to reasonable, and I don't know what reasonable means, but I've been in the court of law, and I don't want to have to answer that again. Okay? So I'm on probably the most conservative side of this. If I have handicapped people coming to this town to do trade, if I have these fine folks here coming to do this trade in this fine city, they need to be safe regardless. And they need to have public facilities to go to the bathroom in or wash their hands or whatever they might want to do. That's all the city is saying at this point. I know what the regulations are. I've been doing this for about 32 years, like I said earlier. And I believe,
well, let me ask you,
your interpretation of the code is nowhere close to what 10 building officials will say. Okay?
To your point, being conservative, is that where, I just handed you an email that this was your, let's see, Clay was talking about using this alternate approach or I was talking to Clay, and I'm talking to the council about an alternate approach, utilizing the library and rec center. Said I'll check it out with the mayor, check it out with the code guy, you, and these are three alternative solutions, correct? So he laid out 3 ways to bring the buildings into compliance. Each building can have its own facility, handicap compliant, restroom, toilet, sink, water fountain, on the outside, unisex, bottled water. All right, says
You need to settle
you
in
can't
the
use a
chair.
central facility that serves all buildings. It has to be within 200 feet of the buildings that are served. The facility will need a men's and women's restroom, each with handicap compliant toilet sink. It will also need a water fountain. This
Sit down
facility
with that.
will have to be open to the public during the hours your businesses are open, or operating, excuse me. All right, now where did you get the 200 feet?
The reason why I put the restriction at 200 feet, and I can do that according to what you said earlier. The topography here in this city doesn't allow people to go up and down hill very easily. You understand that?
Why does it not allow the people? I don't understand that.
A person that's in a walker or blind, they don't know where to go. Okay? A person that's in a wheelchair, coming down this hill right here is not acceptable.
So you're
Come
saying
to this
the
facility.
city of Sharpsburg is liable for that hill and that slope and that grade?
I'm just using good common sense like the code asked me to do.
I wish we all could do, yes, I would love.
And all the city's asking you to do is provide facilities, and each one of these facilities facilities, or provide a central facility that will service those areas equitably. That's it.
Okay. So, but the 200 feet comes from the slope and the grade?
The topography of the city, yes.
Okay. The library, to my knowledge, is pretty well maybe within 10 feet plus or minus elevation of those buildings.
Take the library off the table, because first off, we're not going to open that library during all the business hours. The stores are open for people to walk in there with all their computers and books and everything. That's not gonna happen.
Wendell, I think we're just trying to establish what would be usable, whether it would be viable and approved by the council is another matter completely. So let's look at every solution.
He brought it up.
Well, I see that. Let's look at every solution and see from David, if any of this will meet the criteria, and then it'll be up to the council
Again,
to debate it.
To use that facility is up to the council and the mayor.
But,
Not
I mean,
mine.
it's a single bathroom, so
Exactly.
it wouldn't be in compliance without modification, would it?
Right,
In your
you would need two facilities, female and male.
So even if we're gonna use that because of topography, it would have to be modified to meet the criteria to serve the business. Okay.
You know, one thing, looking at, talking to the Department of Community Affairs, who sort of is not really an oversight, as I found out, but, sort of a,
Advisory, that's.
advisory, thank you. The codes, the way I understand it, you know, they're permissive codes and mandatory codes.
Yep.
And the International Property Maintenance Code is a permissive code or a mandatory code?
It's a permissive code,
Okay, meaning,
meaning the cities or the counties can adopt it or not. It's not a mandatory code. It's whether or not they choose to adopt it and enforce it.
and, you know, there's also the International Existing Building Code that is a permissive code. And that might be something to look at. Do you think that would help this situation if they adopted that? You know,
I don't see any help in it, no.
even looking at the historic nature.
What the existing building code is what it does, is it gives you an idea of what was done 50, 60, 75 years ago and the theory behind it. And does it continue to work today? Yes, in most cases. Not completely in most cases. It's theory. That's what this is.
You can tell I'm well organized on something being ED. Let's see. It's my understanding that they actually, in the existing building code, if I can find my notes, they actually, reference the fact that there could be buildings without bathrooms.
Yes, they could be. There are buildings out there without bathrooms, as you well know.
Absolutely. And it appears that under the historic designation, then you could be exempt from some of the more stringent codes.
No, the code says that if it's impossible for you to alter the facility to allow for bathrooms or anything like that, whatever alteration it might be, if it's impossible because of the configuration, the type construction, the aesthetics or whatever, no, it could be exempt, yes. But that comes from somebody higher than me.
But it references not as in, I mean, it doesn't, you don't have to take it to that degree. You can take it to the degree that if it would take away from the historic character or nature of the building.
That's what I said.
Okay.
Well, I have a question there, because when you say take away from the historic nature of the building,
Mhm.
by appearance, we might all say that they look historic, and they do,
Mhm.
but who's defining them as historic? We don't have them on a registry, right?
But it says, structure deemed historic in total or in part, and it also said as deemed by local jurisdiction, which,
Which I do remember that back when we did our 2006 town plan,
comprehensive plan.
yeah, and this may have been around the time that we were working with that lady. I can't recall, my memory does not serve me like that. But I do recall us having more stringent building codes and guidelines because we did want to preserve the look of the town. But I'm thinking at that time that we were trying to also get the town considered in the historic registry also, and there were multiple
Don't do
reasons
that.
for us wanting to do that. Y'all help me, because I can't say for sure.
Yeah, you're right, so
So around that time frame, if we're gonna spend the money that we did on a comprehensive plan for the town and wanting to say, you know, Advanced Auto Parts can't come in here and put up their red and yellow sign, eliminate it across from, you know, the corner store there, which would be horrific and an eyesore. I think we're trying to do all this in
Don't hit
conjunction
it so hard.
together.
Don't hit it too
If
hard.
the time frame is what I'm thinking, as far as getting it considered historic district. I just remember us comparing ourselves to other towns, downtown Newnan and so forth, and specifically having that lady come to several of our meetings, talking about having us on the National Register. And it's almost even seems like at that time that they were offering tax credits to building owners at that time if they were going to be making any improvements. And I don't remember some limit, it seemed like it was $10,000 or $20,000 to be able to do tax deduction. And I know this is probably getting off the whole agenda of sewer and bathroom, but we are discussing altering a historic building, right? So historic to me, I guess, visually looks historic, but is it actually by definition historic, is what I'm trying to say.
And that,
Don't hit it
according
too
to the
hard.
Georgia code, and wherever I read it a minute ago, that's up to you. And within the document I just provided you, the 2006 comprehensive plan, the town has already designated that.
designated the historic overlay district, but not a building specifically.
How do you, Sharpsburg preserves and builds on its historic character, maintaining a small town feel, growing, let's see. You got historic district, historic downtown. In the historic district, the integrity of historic structures is preserved through specific historic regulations incorporated in the zoning ordinance of Sharpsburg revised September 8, 2005. Is that y'all?
Right, but the fact that a building is designated historic does not take away from the fact that it has to meet the codes, right, David?
See, you understand why we need an attorney, Don? I mean, we're just,
No, that was
We're
pretty
split.
clear,
We're split.
what David just said.
you got everything, right? I hope so. I mean, it's very clear to me. I just, what do you do when you have different situations where it's technically infeasible or technically impossible to comply with codes?
Ask for an engineer
And then
to design whatever it will take to keep it safe. If
without
I don't
regard
have
to
the
financial
knowledge,
burden or hardship on the owner?
money doesn't come into
Be careful.
any aspect of the code.
Sure it does.
These are just the minimum standards, so if you want to go above the minimum standards, yeah, I guess it would.
And the Georgia code right here, which is an adaptation of the international building codes, correct?
Mhm.
Says right here, compliance concepts where practical to permit continued use of existing buildings and structures without overly restrictive financial burdens on owners or occupants.
Define that.
I'm asking, I'm not the code official here. I'm not the code
I don't know, I don't know what
32
your
years.
overly restricted financial burden is, so define that for me.
Okay, according to
I mean, $100 might restrict me.
these are the properties in question.
Okay.
All right. How is it that how is it that I am going to, how do I make that, how do I make this work where, how do I make a piece of property,
Sit down with that. I'll take it.
okay? For instance,
Are you asking me for a solution, or are you asking me for
I'm asking you
advice?
to reference the code and tell me, or tell the city what they need to do. All right, building one, or parcel one, lot size is 25 by 105, that's 2,625 square feet. The
Right.
building that occupies that is 18 by 65, that's 1,170 square feet, okay? That leaves you about 1,455 square feet to put a septic system, drain fields, and everything to accommodate that building
Mhm.
with a toilet and bathroom facility.
Put it in the central sewer facility.
Mr. Bridges.
Okay, so where am I gonna put that on parcel number one?
Well, wait a minute, let me answer that, because I have provided, I got a septic tank man out here to, right here it is. This is the estimate as to the cost and what he was going to do, the number of
You
feet,
get
and everything. All that you are going to be required in building number one, to answer your question, is to come out the back of it and run it. All those buildings will be connected to one septic tank, which is 1,500 gallons. County has already approved it, and so you don't have to have a septic tank for each building.
How can you, as a city or a building official, make recommendations and interpret law, ordinances, and zoning requirements and enforce those on me, on individual properties, just because I have the luxury of having other property? That's irrelevant. You have to make zoning and ordinances on each individual property. What if I sold those 6 properties? What would the next owner do?
Same thing, they gotta comply.
Okay, how do they comply? That's my point. How do you comply? How do you comply with these 6 properties
We give
individually?
them the same alternatives that you have been offering.
And those are what?
I told you, you put in a central facility, or you can put it.
Where are you gonna put it in?
It's your property. I can't tell you where to put it in.
Yes, you are. You tell, you.
No, I'm telling you what the minimum facilities have to be. You design it. I'll tell you if it meets the code. How about that?
Joe, I have a commercial piece of property myself, and that I bought back in 2001. And unfortunately, when I bought it, it was in septic tank failure. And the county, Coweta County, was refusing to give me a certificate of occupancy to open this building.
Because it didn't have central.
Because it was not acceptable as far as septic. They said the septic tank was failed, they would not approve. Health department, everything, environmental health, I went through everything. I had to dig up 6 parking lots and remove that portion of my parking lot. Have an environmental guy come out to find out if the land under that asphalt hurt. Spend $30,000 on having the septic run under the existing parking lot, new drain fields, and then, because I removed 6 parking spots, I had to expand my parking lot on the other side. Overall, it cost me about $60,000. I didn't have that, I was trying to open a new business. They didn't care if I didn't have the money. I had to do this in order to get the building opened. And so I had to make other arrangements to to make it happen. I have been in your shoes, I understand and know, but that's what the county did.
What,
I had to remove parking lots.
what is the town government here to do in general, day in, day out? What do you,
To help
what,
people.
to help people? Okay, okay. What about property owners?
Citizens and property owners.
Okay, all right. You know, your zoning ordinances and your building codes and all of them, they start off with the legal mumbo jumbo of, you know, whereas this and all, you know, the zoning procedures law and purposes of promoting the health, safety, convenience, order, prosper, and general welfare of the municipality, promoting desirable living conditions, sustain stability of neighborhoods, protecting property against blight and depreciation, securing economy and government expenditures, lessening congestion of streets, facilitating the adequate provision of transportation and water. You have sewerage in here, which is not here, but it's in your zoning ordinance adopted October 2nd, 2006. Schools, parks, and other public requirements, protecting the value of existing properties. Let's see, provision, it states, you know, protecting the value of existing properties, conserve the value of the town's economy, encourage the most appropriate use of land and structures. I don't see this happening. I don't see this being part of what you're doing, you know, in my case.
I think it's exactly, what you read is exactly what we're trying to do.
I don't see it.
Well, you might ought to read it again because it's.
I've read it many times, reading's not gonna make it happen. You guys are gonna make it happen. I sat here in the last meeting, it was in December, and y'all brought up the fact that a resident on Sunset Drive said, hey, I got a dark corner. I want a street light. Okay? We're not Chicago, we're not New York, we don't have rampant crime, so what is the purpose of the town of Sharpsburg providing that street light for that one resident?
It was for the safety of the children in my neighborhood, and there's about 12 of them.
That was never brought up.
Yes, it was.
No, it was not. We can go back and look, we can go back, I got
It
it.
may not have been that meeting, but I had brought that same issue up prior to. That's why Wendell asked, how did my son feel about the light being up? Because my son was actually ran off the road by a van. I'm on a one-way road, not a two-way. So there's a very small amount of roadway, and a van came around when he was riding his bike, and he went off into the ditch, and it was dark. And there are kids that have to walk to the bus stop, and this is the issues that we have been talking about for years. I even had the bus stop picking children up on Highway 54 because of it being dark in the mornings, and people cannot see those kids cross those roads. And I made the bus, or I asked for the bus to start coming down on Williams Circle. We have about 11 or 12 children that go to school in that whole vicinity of Williams Circle and Sunset, and they all meet down at Williams Circle for the safety of those kids boarding that bus. So they do have to walk down that road, and it is a one-way road.
With all due respect, I mean, none of that was talked about, and it was a property owner or a
It
resident
was me.
that asked, no, it was somebody else. You said, hey, and y'all looked at each other
Well,
and said,
he
we're gonna do that?
there
I
was,
said, yeah,
in addition
approve.
to me asking for it, the resident on 100 Sunset, and the reason why I brought it up is because I don't want it to look like if I ask, because I'm on council, something gets done just for me, that there was a complaint from my neighbor on 100 Sunset about it being dark in that road. But, I mean, Polly knows, she's heard me talk about it before because she's been to a lot of the meetings, but that was mostly a concern purely about children's safety and walking on that one-way street.
Right, well, I apologize, you know, to be insensitive in that regard, but I did not know that, no. I didn't know
And they
that.
ride their bikes down there all the time, and it was a safety issue.
Well, I mean, I think we're pretty much about where we were 3 years ago. One other question for you guys. Why January 1, 2012, was all of a sudden this such an issue? You know, what changed to make it where our properties were totally in the wrong? And if somebody's gonna go to jail, or somebody was gonna get fined, or somebody was gonna get harmed, or not be in a safe environment, where is that? How is that? How did that happen?
First off, it has to occur at some point. The fact that we didn't do it 10 years ago doesn't mean that we don't need to do it now. Now, we have been asking Mr. Bridges for years and years, talking to him about it, and obviously he didn't choose to do it. So at some point, for the safety and well-being of the citizens, and to keep one of the main things that is being overlooked here is the fact that those buildings would stay rented for 2 or 3 months. I've mentioned this to you before, so listen
This has
again.
nothing to do with the city. This is, I can run them out
Yes, it
and
does.
sell jelly beans if I want to.
Right, but we want, as a city, we want those buildings to remain occupied. And the only way we could do that is to,
Why is it your job to do that? Why do you take, if you would take that much effort and put it into providing bathrooms for the constituents and for the property owners, you get the same result. You realize that, right?
no, it's not our responsibility to put in the bathrooms to keep them occupied.
Well, then don't worry about what goes in there. If you're not taking responsibility, you want this to happen, so you're gonna take the responsibility, you're gonna put these ordinances in, and that's gonna force us to do something.
It's going to encourage you to do something so that you can open them, just keep them open. I have right here from Mr. Bridges, the rental of all of it. He gave it to me. I can't go there. But anyway,
I don't
in the
believe
long
that.
run, it would be to your advantage as the owner to do it, and that's our opinion. But regardless of that, we still got to go back to the code. Not only that, do you want to bring this up?
Yeah, it's long.
All right, I'm gonna have Donna read something, because I don't wanna read it. I've read it enough, but I want her to read this. This is in reference to business license.
Yeah, this is in our occupational tax ordinance. It was something that, it started with, January 1st, 2012. This is for the year 2012. Prior to the issuance of a business registration, all businesses with a location or office within the town limits shall pass an inspection performed by the town clerk or designee to ensure the premises and businesses are compliant with all laws of the state of Georgia, town ordinances, town zoning regulations, town heating, electrical, building codes, and Coweta County health codes. And for the years after that, all new businesses which have not previously maintained a business registration with the town and which maintain a location or office within the town limits, and any current businesses which wishes to relocate to a new location in the town shall pass an inspection performed by the town clerk or designee to ensure the premises and businesses are in compliance with all laws of the state of Georgia, town ordinances, town zoning regulations, town heating, electrical, building codes, and Coweta County health codes. In the event that any business shall fail an inspection, the town clerk or designee shall provide the applicant a conditional business registration specifying the action needed and to pass inspection. Town clerk or designee shall re-inspect all businesses under a conditional business registration within 60 days from issuance of conditional business registration.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Does anyone have any questions, statement, reference to what we just read? Mr. Bridges, the floor is yours when you,
Oh, I didn't know why, I'm not sure where it was to me, but,
it applies, it is for all businesses, therefore.
So what, so that's, what is that? Is that answering a question or a problem, or solving a problem? I don't see anything here.
compliant to get a business license.
Sure.
Is that-
I mean, what did you guys, did you guys reach out to Warm Springs or anything and talk to them about how they have, you know?
Don't make any difference what Warm Springs does. It
Yeah.
does not, it does not affect, I mean, I have your notes here from the lady that sent you the thing on Warm Springs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in that, she stated to you, it says, but unless your county or local government has passed a code making it a requirement that all businesses provide restrooms to the public, there is nothing in the state code that mandates public restrooms for businesses other than food. That is not true. It is in the state code, we just read it. But say that's not. It also says that we have the right to put in the ordinances. She sent that to you and you forwarded it to us.
I certainly did.
Yes, sir.
I thought, you know, maybe you could sort of see how they're able to do that. Are they illegal in what they're doing, or are they out of bounds, or are they just skirting the law, or are they running amok in Warm Springs and it's just a Wild West shoot 'em up town, or what is it?
Answer the question, please, Dave, if you would.
You stated earlier that Georgia is a home rule state. Do I need to go any further?
No, but that, you know, that's where some point in time, there has to be another level of oversight here. You can't just keep quoting that, you know, and using that to hide under. And
I don't think I'm hiding, I'm sitting right out here in the middle of the room. I think I'm telling you exactly what it states. And I don't think that the town here is hiding. They're still here. You know, a law is a law regardless.
that's right.
You know, and if you're speeding, you're speeding.
But you know what? You know, speed limits change, don't they? Same
They sure
road,
do.
same
I mean,
roads
and they
change.
post them
Mhm.
where they change, don't they?
But is it to your understanding that existing structures, you cannot overly burden and overly require?
I don't think I am overly burdening you, and I don't think I'm overly requiring you
How?
to make adjustments into your buildings or make a correction in a facility to accommodate the public.
I
And
I can't physically do that on these properties. I've shown you the square footage of these individual properties. I had the county environmental health director come out here and I said, look at these buildings individually, okay? Can I put a septic tank and bathroom in this? Is it feasible? Is it possible to
Okay,
do
the
that?
same situation was in the town of Brooks.
Uh-huh.
You know where the town of Brooks is?
I think
Have you ever been to the town of Brooks?
Who's the mayor?
I don't know. the
Dan
mayor.
Langford?
No, he's gone.
No, he's still there.
Yeah, okay, call him up. Ask him what they did to solve their problem.
I did.
What did they do?
They've got a development that has a septic system, like a community, whatever, like a sewer system, mini sewer system.
Yeah, where is it?
It's in a retail, residential development.
No, sir.
Where is it?
It's on the recreation field.
That's right, that's right, it's a city.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a novel idea that the city would do that.
No,
They
it wasn't
would go
the
out
city,
their
it was
way.
the county that did that.
Okay, well, you know,
Maybe
it's a local
it was a
jurisdiction of government.
conjunction thing that they worked out, okay? Because none of the facilities in Brooks had facilities,
Mhm.
and they wanted to prosper there.
Mhm.
Every one of the facilities is full and occupied right now.
Did
Except
each
for maybe
one of the separate owners provide this
They
septic system?
all tied in and all paid for their part.
Okay. I'll call Dan myself and we'll, I've already discussed it with him. I don't know that to be
Yeah.
true. So you're telling me all the property owners
Tied in and paid for that.
paid
system.
money, paid for that system? Whose land did they use?
They used the county's land.
Oh, okay. So the county provided something so the
They
town
just-
of Brooks
They
kind of
helped
met
the
them
city.
halfway.
Yes, sir.
That's a novel approach. All right,
Do you have a suggestion, Jeff?
well, sure. Why don't you use some of your land?
To do what, sir?
To put a septic, put a sewer system in here, put a septic system in here. I'll tie them.
We talk about tying on.
What are we talking about doing?
Being an active participant in the college, is that what I heard you say?
That's what they did in Brooks.
You can't require me, you cannot require me to do what you're doing, okay? And somebody beyond this room and beyond the scope of understanding is gonna be telling you that sooner or later. So, I'm kind of wasting my time.
Joe, does the post office, is it currently rented?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, you guys, you ever heard of inverse condemnation? Have you ever heard of inverse
Yes,
condemnation?
I did.
Okay, can you explain that to the council?
I'm not an attorney.
Okay, all right. Well, that's why we might need an attorney here. Thank y'all for, I mean, I don't really have anything else to say. This is going around in a circle. I really don't have time for it. Keith, do you have anything to say? I haven't heard a word out of you. I was just curious.
Well, I've been listening. The only thing that I can get from this is a play on words with the historic register.
Those are y'all's
If we-
words now.
No, I'm talking about what you said. If we can call it historic, we can get around the bathrooms, but if we
Already
call
called
it
it
historic, you don't want to meet the demands of the historic register. And I want to work with you, and I think that if we could come up with some way to get buy-in from you, not just a tap on, but however to offset these costs, then I think that would be a solution. If we could come up with a tank in an area that perked, I think we could all come up with something that would work.
I mean, we talked about developing our park down here. And in the beginning, the park plan didn't have a bathroom, and what did I say? It's gonna fail, didn't I? I said, you cannot expect families and moms to bring their children down here to a park and not have a facility for those kids to go to the bathroom at. Then I think Wendell said, well, they can come use this bathroom. And I said, no mom is gonna wanna leave their kids down there on the park playing. Will they take one of their kids up here or send one of their kids up here independently to use this bathroom?
We found out we can't do that anyway. He was-
Regardless, we mentioned it.
Right.
And I said, there's no sense in building a park if we cannot have individual facilities down there for families to use, right? Otherwise, it will be what? Unsuccessful. I wouldn't go to it. I wouldn't bring my kids to it. If they don't have anywhere to pee and go to the bathroom, you know what I'm saying? So, that's where I was with us trying to talk about a piece of property that the town does own, that does want to develop it for the community. No, I'm not in it to develop it halfway. It needs to be developed where it services the needs and functions of every person that wants to come here to enjoy it. And I don't know, possibly if the post office, maybe when it becomes vacant, that could become a central place for your people to use the bathroom. I mean, I don't know if that's an option or not, but it seems like it might be a good one. I mean, it's further up on this map.
I want to go home.
This is the post office, it's further up, it's more direct central to these buildings that he owns. And if that were, and him being the owner of this, okay, he could make it where these owners have keys to have this open, the same business hours that these are open. Would that not be a viable? And I think this post office, which is a newer facility than any of the others, meets more of the current regulations as far as American Disability Act and so forth, but I haven't been inside of it, so I don't know that, it just appears that way from the outside.
What there is inside there's 2 bathrooms in that building, but they would have to be brought up to code, which we're suggesting the petition be put across there, so that the tenant in that building would have a key to a door that went into the bathroom. But it would close off, and the people in the town, for the stores, could come in at the side door up there into that facility. and make
And
it
even if
comply.
they didn't do that, the loss of rental income on that one post office will totally make up for it in the other 5 or 6 buildings that are around it that are currently not,
You
it
don't,
seems.
you don't have to keep them from renting their entire building. All you have to have is a petition back to the back to allow the public to come in. David and I discussed this.
I mean, would that be something that you could think about?
That's, like Clay say, that's an option. And then it has to be looked at upon, what is this fellow right here gonna require me to do?
I mean, I'm assuming you
I've
have to
already
expect.
told you what it required, you know. I
That
don't,
seems
I,
like the easiest, best thing,
Right.
to be honest,
The
to
building
be
above
honest.
it's got a restroom, he could do the same thing.
What else?
There's one on the corner. The,
Main brick store.
the brick store up at the corner has a bathroom on the lower level. Could be retrofitted for all of them to use.
You could have doors coming right off Main Street, right off the sidewalk, and partition an area off so that you didn't lose the occupancy of the rest of the building. And make a restroom right there.
The only thing
It would be
I would
open.
say is that that's the same bathroom he uses, he may not be keen about letting people do that, I don't know, I would probably look down on it if I was renting it. But the difference with this is if you are, I don't know, it seems like it might work.
I still go back to the point that my attorney has told me, you cannot make us do certain things to code that are impossible. They're technically infeasible. And you're asking me to put a bathroom in every one of those buildings, okay? I'll provide one. And when you take those 6 properties individually, you cannot, it is impossible.
Tell me
Unless-
why. Tell me why.
Because there's not enough square footage to put a conventional septic system in.
What did I just tell you, Mr. Bridges?
You're not listening to me.
You're not
6
listening to
properties, 6 properties.
Yes, sir.
You cannot make judgment and rule and ordinances with the luxury of me having other property. That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant that we own the other property down there.
No,
It's irrelevant.
no.
You're acting, so you're imposing this ordinance on my vacant land too?
No.
Because I would have
No.
to utilize that vacant land to satisfy the requirements of your ordinance and what you're holding me to.
Whatever.
Yes, that's exactly what you're doing. How can you make me put, or how can you put a septic system for each one of those buildings?
Don't have to, I told you that. One septic tank will take care of it.
Okay, where am I gonna put one septic tank? Where am I gonna put one septic tank on those 6 properties?
Right, I'm
This-
not,
I just gave you the overview, topo,
right.
I gave you the dimensions. And if I'm wrong with the dimensions, I apologize.
Dimensions have anything to do with it, because I'm talking about putting it right here. You know where the tank is in the back of the store, where the propane tank,
Which one?
or the last building, before you get to the vacant lot between there and what the old Papa Juju's.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there is a propane tank there that can easily be moved around the corner. The septic tank will fit right there. I had the guy to look at it and say.
That's a vacant property that's separate of the.
No. It is a part of that property right there.
Why don't you look and correct yourself?
I did. I went over there and looked at it. and-
These are my properties, I think I know them.
Okay. I'm just telling you, there's room to
It's
do
not
it.
possible. I've had the county septic tank guy come out here and tell me, that and it's in there, what he told me. You cannot do it.
Yeah, well, we.
So you're gonna hold me to an ordinance that it's impossible for me to comply.
No,
And that's where inverse condemnation comes in.
we just gave.
And I would advise you, well, you know, you do what you want, but each and every one of you probably need to understand what that means. Because everybody's making judgments. Everybody in this room, right here on these tables, y'all are responsible for what's happening, okay? Talk to your attorney, see what he says, and we'll talk again.
Let me ask this question. Say he only owned one piece of property, the number one up there on the corner. If that was the only property in Sharpsburg he owned, would that change anything?
How?
doesn't change that you need to have a bathroom for the facility. If it's already got a bathroom, then you're that much ahead of it.
So when that building was constructed, It was constructed
It was,
illegally.
no, it was constructed during a time when there was no bathroom.
1900.
Everybody went to the outhouse.
So now, 100 years later, how do you account for that? How do
You
you
make accommodations.
We would be
Okay.
doing some.
And like I said, you need to search other avenues to accommodate all of those facilities. You own those facilities, like you said.
That's right.
And it's your responsibility, not the city's
Wow.
responsibility, to come
No
up
way, if you're gonna be
with
quiet.
a solution to your issues.
We didn't have any issues until we started zoning and doing all these ordinances. We didn't have issues.
Probably not.
Clay, I mean, some of the bills we own together, you know, and then some of them y'all had before we have them, and y'all rented them out. We didn't have issues.
But you have one that does.
Yeah,
And you need to find a solution.
and the people
And all
responsible
we
for those
can do
issues
is
are right
assist
here.
you in
That's
finding a
not
solution.
fair.
No, it's not.
I can, you know, what you're doing to me is not fair.
Well, it's not fair. You can't put the blame. You have to take ownership, just as I did on my own commercial property.
Exactly right. You have to take ownership.
I did take ownership, and I
And,
fixed my
and when you
problem.
raise your hand yay, or you nay, or second, that's taking ownership.
But you've got to be able to take some accountability. You just do.
Well, that's not for you, for me to decide at this point, it'll be for some other people to decide later. I mean, if y'all got any other questions for me, fine. I don't know if the public has any comments, you know,
Public can't comment.
sir?
Public can't comment.
Why can they not comment? I thought that was the whole thing. Y'all said they had a work
This
session,
is a work
and I
session.
said, that's great, and I said, hey, can I come? He goes, certainly. And I said, certainly, the public's invited.
They invited. This is a work session. A work session is for the council and invited guests that pertain to the issue at hand.
Okay, yeah, that's, you know, I didn't know that. Well, I don't have any other solutions. I mean, I got plenty of other comments, but you're not gonna like them. So,
We're willing to hear them, Joe.
you guys are way out of bounds. Way out of bounds. You're using an occupational tax in a regulatory, way, which that's illegal according to the Constitution. Okay? You got all kind of other issues, but I'm wasting my breath because we don't have a third party here that can say, this guy's a point, you have a point, this is where you think it is, this is where he thinks it is, but let's go back and research, and I can pull up law, I can pull up stuff that is even over your head.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't practice to be one. But if the council wants their attorney here, then so be it.
Here's some stuff. Well, unless y'all got any other suggestions or you wanna work on stuff, I really don't have time for this. I mean, it's not productive. I mean, you guys have been
I
working
remind
against.
you, Joe, that we're taking of our time too for the citizens of this time. We're not here on a Saturday just for our own enjoyment. We're here to try to work out something with you. And apparently that's not working real well. But don't talk about you're wasting your time, we're wasting our time apparently also.
You're wasting a lot of people's time.
Right, now,
Well,
You
I
can.
don't see that any of us are wasting any of our time. I think it's good talk, and that's the only way we're gonna come to an initial resolution. I think that all of us have participated and tried to mention that, so I'm not here wasting my time.
you've got some alternatives that you can do, just as she did with her business. You can do that and make it viable, you'll make it happen.
If I own the one corner store up there, the wooden store, that's all I own. 2 years ago, I'm renting it out. Then all of a sudden, January 1, 2012, y'all tell me you can't do it. How am I to comply with what you've enforced on me? How? You tell me. I mean, it's a simple question.
I mean, I can tell you how I had to hire an engineer.
And you had adequate property within what you had to do, what you are.
I had to dig up parking lot. I had to excavate actual parking
So I guess I need to tear down part of my building
I didn't
enough,
do
so,
what you
enough,
told me to do.
enough to, okay, well, right here, here's the building code inspector. I already had the Cavity County Environmental Health tell me it's feasibly, technically infeasible.
They told me that too. And I couldn't just lose the investment I put in. The health department said, you have a piece of property that you'll never open. And I went and hired an engineer, and my engineer did some studies against some of the other properties, commercial properties. He said, you're gonna have to dig up your parking lot. And the county said, if you dig up that parking lot, you're gonna have to add on to be in compliance. So I had to add on more parking. It cost me a lot of money. I did
But
it.
you had the property, within what you had, you could make it possible.
I would have never bought that property if I knew that that's what I had to do. I would have never done it.
Well,
I think digging up a permanent asphalt parking lot, that, it to me is considered kind of like a permanent structure. I would have never considered buying that property if I knew I had to do that.
well, I mean, you kind of, you got some apples and oranges we're comparing here, but I still go back to the fact that this property is unique. It was built 1900, 1940, whatever it was. It was in compliance then. And it was so for the remaining 70 years, But now, all of a sudden, this is such a crisis that a bathroom has to be in there. It is such that health and sanitary issues are that much of a crisis that you're gonna dedicate all this time to enforcing that only.
Not on you, on everybody. You're not being singled out. Anybody else that comes in has got to comply to.
You've rendered my property useless. You understand that?
You have rendered it. You
What have I done?
not put bathrooms in,
And
not complied to the regulation.
that you adopted and interpreted. This gets back to interpretation, is basically what it is. There are ways that we can work this out. And that's where we're gonna have to get somebody with some oversight to open your eyes and allow you to understand within the law, you can still be good. You're not gonna go to jail for not allowing me to have a bathroom in there. But that's well within the law, I assure you. And there'll be somebody that will have to, make you understand. I don't know, I do appreciate y'all coming out though. I mean, I was hoping for a little bit better, but, I provided,
What were you hoping for, please?
I was hoping that we would be able to use the rec center and the library to comply with your codes and ordinances, so I could open up those buildings. I've got people waiting to come in there. I've got people that are legitimate antique businesses, and you're losing tax revenue, I'm losing revenue. I mean, all I can do is go to the county and say, hey, I want to be reappraised because this is the net value of it now. That's gonna lower y'all's taxes, it's gonna lower the county's revenue. It's not a lot, but you know what, I'm not giving you tax money that's not deserved.
Anything else to come before the committee
About this in particular, no.
about this issue? This is all that's on the agenda.
But I just had some other things.
Anything you could put on the agenda?
Yeah, can I do that? No, it's not on the agenda. Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Bridges?
Nothing.
Appreciate you coming down.
I did talk to Don, I do want to see some plaques or the zoning and engineering plans on that. If we're done, I'll take you away from me, right?
Hearing